Guys, let's talk a little bit about this Ukraine-Russia situation. And maybe we can figure out a way, or if we can all do some research on this thing, perhaps we can actually make some money out of this. Because a lot of people are saying that it's too late to short Russian currency, it is too late to short Russian ETF, maybe it's too late to short any Russian oil, since a lot of them are already down by 70%, 30%, 50%, blah 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 accordingly, right? And later on, perhaps in the middle of this week, we're gonna talk about why maybe shorting Russian ETF is still viable or available, or whatever you call that, and you can probably still make about I think you can still make about $2 on every share. I think I'll show you guys some math there. But we all know that, Ukraine and Russia enter into a sort of like a talking stage, discussion stage, negotiation stage, whatever you call that. So the reason why Vladimir Putin actually invaded, or quote unquote invaded, or whatever you call that, right? Because we don't want to be politically incorrect. We also don't want to be correct. We don't want to, get people railed up about, hey, are you on the Ukraine side or on the Russian side? I'm pretty neutral on this one, okay? Very neutral on this one, since we did extensive research on what really happened over the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, or some over that 7 years, maybe 8 years, because this entire war situation actually all started in 2014. So a brief history lesson for you guys. There's always has been territorial conflict between Ukraine and Russia. As we all know, in the old USSR stage, Ukraine was a part of Russia, and then it later gains its independence. And, Americans in America, or, EU were always on the Ukraine side. Sort of, it's like a political sacrifice for the West to control Russian influence, right? Because you don't want Russia's influence go beyond its border or go beyond certain territories. And it has, well, let's just say it has minimal military value. It serves as a buffer zone to the neighboring places. It does have some minerals stored, but not that much. It's, other than, I always say that other than producing hot women and fantastic women that, you may want to marry to because they're absolutely gorgeous, they don't really produce that much to the global economy per se. And for those of you who don't grow up in Ukraine, I have a lot of Ukrainian friends, and we're talking about, why the woman, this 4 woman to 1 man situation going on in Ukraine. Turns out that Ukrainian men either go to war or go to neighboring countries to work. Okay, that's basically what it is. And a lot of Ukrainian men are a little bit trashy and a little bit, douchey or whatever. They don't really like to work. And, Russian girls or Russian or Ukrainian girls like guys who can provide, all the shenanigans. So for those of you who want to have a cheap Ukrainian wife right now, this might be a good time to get one, since the rubies or Ukrainian currencies are just going to tank whatsoever, right? But for those of you who want to make a profit off the market, I know it's kind of a bad thing to say, the war is going and we're literally thinking about how to make money out of this. What we need to figure out is the time frame when Russia will end negotiation, either go on fully beast mode, right? Just take it over, which probably not going to happen. Or we have to figure out when negotiation is going to end. And then we sort of time it a little bit and then buy leap options on Russian ETFs. Because think about it, right? Russia produced 10% of total global oil, which means if we do the fundamental analysis on all of these Russian oil companies, by the end of the negotiation ending, there has to be a rebound, because essentially half of the entire EU is reliant on Russia's energy, natural gas, gas itself, and all this kind of stuff, right? So if you take that into account, the whole huge disparity of one of those vanguards, that Russian ETF, like literally went from double digit to almost single digit now. That's absolutely ridiculous. And those things always happen during sort of like a warring period or whatever. But eventually it's going to recover. Same thing with oil, right? We will see a huge spike in the coming month. But by the end of this year, maybe it's not going to be, persisting to go up anymore. And today, during master's class or whatever, we got a very famous fund manager from Wells Fargo came in and talked to us about ESG, and we talk about like disparities of oil and ESG investments. Um, the time frame might be shortened in this case. That means right now when we think, right now we have people start thinking, hey, oil might go to $200, but our price target is 120. That's it. When we reach this 120, it will probably be a good idea to do some long-term shorts, because EV transition is on the rise. It is going for the past 5 years, right? And then, a lot of the newfound money, the new money are trying to eliminate oil companies. Therefore, oil price will eventually stabilize, no matter it's for military purposes, for governmental purposes, or for the sake of EV transition. So this period of high inflation literally cannot last forever. So we can figure out a good time frame for us to think about, hey, by that time, inflation is going to be okay a little bit. Maybe it's not going to be 6% or 7% or even 8% predicted or expected. Maybe it's going to drop by half, by 4%. This is where we sort of have to reevaluate how much oil will worth in the next 2 or 5 years. And from there, we will see that Ukraine and Russian tensions are going to actually mitigate a little bit, piece by piece, day by day. Because why? Because Putin doesn't want Ukraine to go into NATO. Putin doesn't want Ukraine to be a part of the EU. He just thinks that, the Ukraine president had been really active in the global market, sort of like swinging his dick everywhere, and he just doesn't feel really good. And we all know that, I think the entire European Union is a little bit reluctant in terms of accepting Ukraine into the embrace of EU, because there are a lot of interesting stuff that would happen if they do. And the UK Prime Minister and the UK media and diplomat is a little bit too aggressive on this issue, I think. We don't want a war. We don't want a war on the Western frontier. So, I'm pretty sure Putin is really happy as long as people just leave Ukraine alone. There's not going to be, because we're talking about like contesting military powers. We're talking about, putting weapons in there. A lot of countries are supplying weapons and all this kind of stuff. What he really wants is to just let other people stay out of it, and he probably will just stop. Because think about it, if you invade a country and everybody becomes refugee, go to different European countries, you even take the territory. What's the whole point, right? What's the whole point of taking a territory with the people in it? So he has to think about it, unless he's just cuckoos, right? If it's cuckoos here, then who knows what's gonna happen. But let's assume that politicians is not cuckoos here, and their egos aren't, consuming. Their egos usually consume about 50% of them. Let's just say the ego doesn't consume around 90% of them. There has to be a long-term plan here, right? Because the Russian economy is tanking, just tanking like that. And then if they cannot have any outside communication with other countries using US dollars, their only backline is just China. But then, China is probably gonna not supply them forever. So you have a very interesting situation that they can drag this war longer than about a month and a half. It just can't. You can't operate in a current global economy. You can't operate as a country without SWIFT. Okay, you get cut off by Biden by all the sanctions. So what you have to think about is, okay, how long can my military last? Right, 2 months, a month. Right, how long can my country operate itself without, going full on bankruptcy? That's what he's thinking right now. He's actually really nervous. I think he wants to get a point across, but at the same time, he sort of can't, because EU and the US doesn't want to pin Russia in its own like little grave over there, and then he's getting a little pissed and jumpy. So what are some things we can do to profit from this? Is we can actually continue shorting it, because negotiation haven't ended yet. And then we will see a slow flattening out of all these ETFs. But if it's going to draw consistently over the next 10 days, keep shorting it for a little bit of profit day by day was actually going to be a really good idea, right? You can long natural gas. Why? Russia is one of the largest natural gas exporters, and when it got excommunicated, right, by the U.S. government or by the entire global SWIFT system, then that means, even the pipeline is open, you can't really use their gas without paying them. Does that make sense? It's sort of like it's a very interesting dynamic, and some part of the EU is still winter. People need gas, so there becomes a little dilemma over there. So natural gas price is going to be interesting, right? And because energy is sort of like a basket, you can probably do similar things to its complements too. And then I think timber is also another thing that we're out of Russia, but I don't really know about that market. Probably need to do a little more research. So in the next few days, you guys should leave a comment down below and do some research on what else do you think Russia's are huge net exporters, and we can possibly figure out a strategy to sort of capture that the quick spike value loss, and maybe buy some of those for some of those ETFs or buy some of those companies for long-term holdings, especially when it's a ADR situation. Consider right now all currency have a compound effect when it sort of drop all of a sudden based on huge shocks, and we can sort of take advantage of this price mismatch, right? Another thing we can think about is you guys should comment down below of what you guys are thinking that you can benefit from this situation, because in real life, I donated for a cause to make sure that refugee have a home and all of a sudden, but at the same time, as a regular man, you gotta sort of make a profit out of it. Otherwise, what's the whole point of complaining on social media, right? All these people complaining on social media doesn't really do anything about it. We take our own destiny in our own hands, and we have to benefit from it, because that's what we are preaching for this channel anyways, right? All right, see you guys on the upside, and hopefully this video helps. And tomorrow morning, I will try to do a pre-market sort of analysis thing beforehand. But these days are a little bit busy. My company signed contracts with another company, so I gotta look it over and do all this kind of stuff. All right, see you guys on the upside, and it's gonna be a great year.